So this is SQL Developer and SQLcl tips and tricks. Can I get a show of hands? Who in here saw my 15-minute version of this on Sunday? This is completely different tips and tricks, so don't feel like it's a total jip or that I cheated. And I'll actually be going step by step through these versus just showing screenshots and making you guess how to do it. All right. I made the mistake of putting in an abstract that said tips and tricks. Oh, don't worry, this is completely different from the last time I did it. And then I looked at that abstract last week and I was like, oh no, I have to do a completely brand new slide deck. But I promise, brand new tips and tricks, or at least ones that I don't normally show. Our current version of the product is 4.2. This was put out earlier this spring. If I'm showing you things on the screen that you don't recognize, you're probably on an older version. Licensing for this product is very straightforward. It's licensed via your database. All that means for the practical person or user is if you want to submit a service request with My Oracle support, you need to have an Oracle database on your My Oracle support coverage list. And then you can file SRs on SQL Dev just like you would on, SQL Plus or partitioning or whatever else. You, of course, always have the community where you can interact with other users if you don't have a support license. But whether you have a database under support or not, SQL Developer is always free. It's a Java application. I'm using Windows today, but I know plenty of Mac users that use SQL Developer. As long as you have an operating system that will support Java 8, you should be good to go. We have lots and lots of users. Looks like we have about, 45 users in here? 50, maybe? I'm a horrible counter. We're one of the most popular downloads on all of OTN. My favorite bragging point on here is this one right here. We do save customers literally billions of dollars. So you don't have to go out and buy third-party tools if you don't want to. I think it's easy to get started, but it's a very big tool. There's lots of stuff in there. For these talks, I suggest that people find one or two things that really speak to them and go try that. Don't try to consume all of this all at once and run with it. It's just not going to be a good experience. And when you don't see me or you don't have me beside you or you're not at a conference and you want help, try Google. My colleagues have answered questions over the last decade, and we have big presences on all of these networks and much more. And if you still can't find the answer, my email's right here, jeff.d.smith, and I encourage all of you to contact me if you'd like directly. Okay, so we've been out for quite a while, more than a decade now. We average one major release a year. And like I said, we released version 4.2 this spring. So most people would assume the next version will be out sometime next year. And normally you'd be right, but this time you happen to be wrong. Do we have a question in the back? Okay, yeah, no worries. Oh, if you have questions, feel free to ask as we go. Shiny things. I thought maybe there's a squirrel loose in the ceiling or something. No. I usually do this talk in 45 minutes, so I feel like I can really stretch my legs and go a little bit deeper than I normally do in an hour. So if you have questions and you want to go off on a tangent, I'm more than happy to do that. So I was saying, normally you'd be right in assuming that the next major release of SQL Developer, don't worry guys, you haven't missed anything yet, I'm just riffing. But we've changed the way we're going to do releases, at least on our team. So we're going to move to a quarterly release cycle. And I hope to have that start this week. So hopefully when you get back home after this trip, there'll be a new version of SQL Developer for you to use. And that'll be version 17.2. And if you're wondering what happened to version 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, the numbering scheme is going to change to match the year and the quarter in which the releases come out. So when you tell me you're on version 20.3, I know you downloaded your software 3 years into the future. Okay? I think we've announced that we're changing the release cycle for the database as well. I don't want to go too much into details on that because you'll ask me questions I don't want to answer. But the days of waiting 2 or 3 years for a major database release are going to go away. You'll expect more regular updates. So what you'll expect in 17.2 is primarily it's going to be a patch for 4.2, so it's a little bit of a cheat, mostly bug fixes. If you'd ask me what version of SQL Developer you should be running today, I would say probably 4.1.5. Super, super stable release, hardly any bugs in it. 4.2 introduced 2 or 3 little annoying things that will be fixed in this 17.2. So next week, I would recommend you start using 17.2. There will be some feature additions on that, and I'll show that in a second. And then again, after that, you can expect a release in about 3 months. And this applies for all the products on my team, which includes SQL Developer Data Modeler, Oracle SQLcl, and Oracle REST Data Services. Any questions on this? Yeah. The way we do installs and releases will still be the same. So it'll be a full zip that you'll put down next to your existing copy, run it, let it migrate your settings over, and then when you're happy with it, you can delete the old one. The concept of in-place updates is very, very appealing, but the ability for us to do that is a little bit tougher and harder than we want to spend the dollars on right now. But eventually it would be nice if we could do an in-place upgrade and it would just download the packets and stuff, but we're not there yet. This is one of the new features that we'll have in 17.2. Has anyone here heard of our new sharding feature in the database? 12c, enhanced quite a bit for 12c release 2. Yeah, so you'll get if you've seen the instance viewer in SQL Developer, very similar type screen here. It's a live updating screen, and you can see your sharding regions and the broker sets and all the associated connections, and you'll be able to see what the shards look like across the different databases. And this actually can show you that east is production and the west region are data guards. And if I right-click, we'll also have a new data guard console. So anyone here using data guard? It's pretty popular with our customers, I think. So whether or not you're using sharding or not, on the DBA tab, there's going to be, if you want to take pictures, this would be a good time to do it. There'll be, here, I'll just do a screen zoom. Do we have any DBAs in the room? Maybe one. It's kind of fuzzy, but view DBA, open your connection, and there'll be a data guard panel there. So you'll get a little viewer of what that situation looks like, and then 3 different pages of reports available for the data guard setups. Looks like we've got properties, statistics, and messages. To the standby, I believe. No, we support. We can connect to all of them. Yeah. There's some other tweaks coming in 17.2. I'll address as we go through this talk. So if you ask me what SQL Developer is, and if we were on the Sears Tower elevator, my elevator pitch, we could cover all of these things. Most of you fall into these 3 categories: PL SQL IDE, worksheet, and browsing and clicking on stuff, right? We do so much more than that. So my other talk this week is about features that most people don't know about, but I think they should be using. And I'll go into great detail on this one, the reporting. So if you're interested in that, come back. I'll go into more details. I know there's at least one talk on data modeling here this week. That's Oracle SQL Developer Data Modeler, but that's also a core feature inside SQL Developer itself. Database administration basically doubles the amount of features in the tool above just writing queries and doing debugging and playing with tables. If and when you need to migrate from SQL Server, Azure, PostgreSQL, Amazon Redshift, what else? Teradata, DB2, Sybase. There's a full migration project feature in the tool that helps you translate those objects and views and store procedural code if they have that into the equivalent Oracle spaces and then move the data over. So you don't use this feature very much, but when you're ready for it, there's a whole lot of help here for you when you need that. One of the newest things I've started playing with and trying not to break is Oracle REST Data Services. Anyone here familiar with that product? I'm temporarily the product manager on that until I screw it up. So we have a lot of support for running that, configuring that, and developing services on that inside of SQL Developer. And of course, we have this new command line interface for Oracle SQL Developer called SQLcl. So that is my elevator pitch for what SQL Developer is. And of course, I would lead with it's free. Lots of people use it. It's kick butt, and I think you should use it. Yep. Yes, yeah, that's a good tip. I'll cover that. If I had something free to give you, I would give it to you right now to reward your awesome leading question. Well, let me just reward you with showing you how to do that. Nothing's free. Well, you know what I mean. Tools, features. Now, on previous versions of the tool, this is in a slightly different place, but everything on version 4, 4.0 and higher, you need to come here. I have nothing against Data Miner, absolutely nothing against Data Miner. It is an awesome feature. It is a huge feature. If you're not using it, turn it off. It'll decrease the number of jars we have to load. It'll decrease the memory footprint of the tool. So yeah, you can turn off a whole slew of these things if you're not going to be using it. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Now, if you want to turn off something like SQL history, no. You're going to deal with it. Yeah. All right, switch to SQL+. Nothing wrong with SQL+, by the way. Not much right with it, but okay. So here's the big first bullet point of my elevator pitch. The PL SQL IDE. Who in here is a PL SQL developer, hacker, fixer, troubleshooter? Most of you? Most of you probably don't use any of these features. But they're here if you would like them to be. A lot of folks will run their PL SQL blocks directly in a SQL worksheet. And it bypasses most of this stuff that you would get in an actual code editor. So you're treating your PL SQL as a SQL+ script. It's much harder to get the compiler feedback, the decorations in the code to show you what's wrong, and all of the fancy stuff. So that would be a tip or a trick is to, if you're going to do the hardcore dev stuff, you can open the file still into the code editor itself and get this type of support. Let's see. Things that I'm fans of, like the debugger. Rest in peace. I'm going to miss that guy. So most of you probably use this to do ad hoc, what is my program doing, right? dbms output. Absolutely nothing wrong with dbms output. We use it because it's easy, it's predictable. My only beefs with it is that it requires that you artificially add code to your programs that you might need to take out or disable later. And I'm impatient, so I don't like having to wait until the program's finished to see what's happened. But it works quite well in SQL Developer. You can either open the dbms output panel and enable polling on that connection, or my tip or trick or hack for that is if you just set server output on, we automatically grab it. Let me zoom in on that too. We'll automatically grab that output from the buffer and print it in the main log panel. I never use the dbms output panel. It's too many steps. I just turn server output on and it just automatically pops up. Now, how do you turn server output on? You simply go into a worksheet and type set server output and run it. Or if you're lazy like me, you put it in your login script. And then when you connect, that's automatically happening for you. Now the debugger. The debugger requires a few setup tasks, but once you've done it, you compile it for a debug, you run the program, You're in an interactive environment now. I can step over code line by line. I can set breakpoints and jump to specific breakpoints. Like, for example, I'm at the 300th iteration of this line of code in the loop. I didn't have to hit the step button 6,000 times to get to that point. I can set a pass count on the breakpoint. I can interact with the code as it's executing. I can change values. What happens if x is equal to 14? I don't have to artificially break the code and hack it up to make it do that. I can just tell the debugger to treat that value as such. And it's happening in the memory space of the program being executed. SQL tables collections, we can easily watch and change those inside the session as it's running. You can step into other programs. You can even do this for anonymous blocks. So you don't have to have a standalone compiled procedure, or function, or package to use the debugger. You can use it on simple SQL Plus looking anonymous blocks that are using SQL. Who in here is using our debugger? Oh, more than a few of you. Awesome. I have a blog post on how to set the debugger up. If you're on 12c, it requires an extra step or two, and it might require a DBA to grant a privilege or to create an access control list rule that allows the database and the network to play nice to allow your machine to debug. And if you have questions on any of that, Helen has a question on that. Yes, so that's the access control. So Helen's comment, I thought she was going to tell me I had 5 minutes left, but her comment was she just upgraded to 12c and she had to have the DBA add her IP address to some list to let the debugger work. So access control lists are a way to secure and protect the database. It prevents the database from calling out someplace, which is what happens when you debug. The database has to connect to Helen's machine for the debugger to work. So you can either create a control list for an individual IP, for a subnet, and it's wildcardable. And you can do it for a user or for all users. So when they set the debugger up, they don't have to do it per dev. They can do it for hopefully entire groups of developers. Gallo, is Gallo in the room? It was. If you don't know Gallo, he set up the content for this track, and he has a very nice blog post on how to do the ACL lists specifically for the debugger. And I actually pull up his blog post when I can't remember how to do it. So kudos to Gallo. Any questions on the debugger? Before I jump off the SQL IDE, I want to show you a couple more tricks. What was that, sir? Just Google Gallo ACL. G-A-L-O-B-A-L-D-A. Yeah. No worries. I showed this trick on Sunday, but if you weren't here on Sunday, when you're dealing with code and data, I really think it's worth the 5 minutes to find a font that you like, even if that means downloading new fonts to your machine. I mean, your professional IT people, don't use the default font. Change the font size, make it bigger. I'm getting older, I have to make it bigger. And if you'd like, you can try different color schemes in the code editors. Black on white, I don't like. So we have ones predefined, or folks have put new ones on GitHub, or you can come in here and just control these yourself. Yes? Yes, there is. And the guy on GitHub, how do you do that? There's an XML file that you have to open with the text editor and basically copy paste. There's not a GUI way to export those code templates, but hook up with me afterwards and I'll show you exactly how to go do that. So this is a SQL worksheet that doesn't have that fancy SQL support in it. If we come pull up an actual program, a few things. We don't have line numbers on by default. If you want to turn them on, just right-click in the gutter. You'll get your line numbers. If you want to know why we don't have line numbers on by default, I lost a battle with the developers. Blame me. They think most people only have 6 or 7 lines of code in a worksheet, and they think the line numbers would... Hey, Hey, I like it because it gives me a laugh. It gives me one more tip to tweet and blog about. Yeah. Any decision I make for the product has the potential of making half the people really happy and half the people really mad. So we usually go with whatever I like or the developer likes, and usually the developer wins. So this isn't a very large program, but I might want to see multiple pieces of it at once. And I've actually seen people open 2 copies of SQL Developer to be able to see the program side by side. Don't ever do that ever again. We're going to fix that right now. You have a couple of choices. The very top right and top bottom of the screen is like a 3-pixel wide sliver. If you haven't noticed this before, it's because you're normal and you're not weird like me, and you just look to see what's weird on the screen and see what happens if you play with it. If you pull this down, it splits the editor. And now you can come play down here while you look up here. That's all it is. And you can split this as many times as you want. This is not a new trick. I talk about this all the time, but I like it so much I'm going to do it again. This is a great April Fool's prank if you have coworkers that are really bad about not locking their machines down. It will teach them to practice security. You can always right-click on the tab and say unsplit, and it takes us right back to a place of joy. Yeah. Oh, the upside down one is fun too, because then you've got to Google upside down how to flip. Yeah, I've done that. Siri's good for that now too, and Cortana. You can actually talk to your computer now and figure stuff out. If I want to see 2 different programs side by side, you can ask. Yes, Siri or Cortana. They are listening all the time, but activate what? You're on a Mac, right? Yeah, you don't count. No, it should be there. It should be there. So let's stop the presentation and debug your computer. We changed your look and feel. Oh, you can't do it on it. He's on a SQL worksheet. That's the only screen in the tool that doesn't support that. I promise. You can also, so to activate the feature, if it's available, you'll see the little divot, or you can also right-click on the tab itself. But I might want to see 2 different things at once, a table and a stored procedure, or a view and a stored procedure, or anything and anything. And that's what we do with these document tab groups. And you just create a new one by right-clicking where those tab groups are, and you ask for a new one. And that's document tab group 1, and that's document tab group 2. And you can have as many as your display supports, and you can just drag things around until you get what you want. And you can create new ones too by just doing stuff like this. And you can do all kinds of really funky, weird stuff, again, to the point of where you think you're screwed forever. At that point, you just reformat Windows. Not the operating system. I've had some lady cry on me once because she thought I was going to window reset Windows to factory settings, and that's just basically reset the desktop view of SQL Developer back to how it comes out of the box. One last trick. Let's jump to, what do I want to do? I got distracted. I want to go look at the, I want to look at the body. Select. This isn't code I normally play with, so let's get out of there. This is the fun of a live demo, by the way. What is simple imp? So I'll just open it. I did that really fast, so I'll do it again. Control, mouse hover, activates as a hyperlink, click, and then it opens that new object. That's the easiest way, I think, to navigate to objects versus going to the tree and hunting and pecking. I showed that on Sunday, so I should apologize for rehashing material, but I can't help myself. All right, so let's jump to the SQL worksheet. Lots of fun stuff here. Most people use this to export data to Excel and send it to people. That's probably the #1 use case for the entire product. It makes me a little sad to think that, but that's okay. We have a complete SQL Plus engine in here. Pretty much anything you can do in SQL Plus, you can do in this worksheet. We have a visual query builder that's somewhat okay if you're brand new to Oracle SQL and want a little click draggy style of writing queries, kind of like Access has. Query history, of course, people know about that. Object completion, the little type ahead helpers. We have grammar checks. I'm always wondering why my code isn't working and the IDE is sitting there screaming at me, telling me that it's not going to work before I even go to run something. Let me show you what that means by that. That's not good. There it goes. I wouldn't argue with you too much. Star one employees. So is that going to run? Not unless I did something really weird. It will run, it just won't work. So you're both right. He's maybe more right. The tool's telling me that it's really upset because of this. And if you mouse over that, it tells you why it thinks it's a problem. It's expecting the from keyword next. Do you guys know what these little things do? These are doc links. I'm connected to 12cr2. This is the 12cr2 doc link to the syntax for a SQL statement. So this is a quick way to jump to docs. These are not hard-coded links. I think we reach out and look for the doc URLs because we love to change those every day just to mess with people, including ourselves. Don't get me started on that. I would test that, but it might not work. We'll test it for giggles. Sweet. Yep. I always forget about that trick. There's so many tricks. This is the helper that I was talking to you about. Doing a select star from and asking for help is not going to be very useful to you. So start typing what you're looking for, and then it'll bring back a filtered list. We bring back everything in your schema, and then we go look in other schemas. And they could be tables, views, synonyms, materialized views. And these guys down here are the code samples from the docs that contain this text. Now, I don't know if that's useful. Someone thought it was useful a long time ago. It might actually be useful. So if you were going to do like a analytical function call and you needed help with the over type stuff, this might be quite handy, I think. You use it and tell me if it's handy or not. Can I what? Yeah. Yes. Up to the 5 you use? If you only want to see a specific schema, just type the schema name first, and then you're only going to see those. That's what I would do. If you've got tables called EMPS in 17 different schemas, that sounds like a design problem on your side. No, I don't. There's not a way to control it at that level unless you're explicit and say, just look in this schema. There is an object search feature where you can say, look for stuff only in these 5 schemas. Yeah, there's not a schema filter for IntelliSense. It could, so just type more. I mean, it's like, this is really messy too. But is that my fault, or is that SQL Dev's fault? And I had to ask for this. We don't automatically pop this up. By default, we only do the auto pop-ups if there's 10 or fewer hits here. And for advanced users, which is probably everyone in this room because you're at Kscope, I actually recommend you turn off the auto pop-ups. Does everyone know how to turn off the auto pop-ups? Yeah, Helen does. Yeah. It's in the preferences, just like everything else. What else do we got in here? I have half an hour left. This is taking longer than I thought. Oh, we lost my slideshow. His question is, how do I go from star to actually what we're going to get back? Let's do a view. Let's see if that works. That should have worked. Of course, it's not going to work for me when I want it to. I know why it's not working. Or maybe I know why it's not working. Work. Nope. This isn't actually 4.2. This is a dev build of what we hope to put out later. Hopefully it doesn't have this bug in it. What's supposed to have right here is a little underlined squiggle that lets you expand the column list. Of course, you could also just do this and do this and get it back that way if you wanted to. I don't know why it's not popping up for me right now. That's live demo, so that's the price I pay. The little squiggles here, you can mouse over this and see what the actual query is or see what the actual column list is. The actual query of this is like 3,000, it's like 600 lines of internal X dollar tables and all kinds of weird stuff. What I was going to say here in the worksheet, I don't normally get time to spend on for tips and tricks, some performance stuff around execution plans and auto traces. So let's look at that DBA data files again. And let's do an auto trace, which is this button right here. Oh, that's not that button. And it helps if you have valid SQL. I was showing off that parser feature. Okay. Auto trace comes from SQL Plus, set auto trace on. This is a variation of that. We basically say we're going to query all of your session statistics currently, run this query, get the plan, get the statistics again, delta those stats to try to show you kind of what's happening in your session as that query was running, okay? And this is the actual plan. So this is the plan from $SQL plan for that SQL ID and for that child number. So it's much better than an explain plan per se. If you want to know why explain plans suck, just look at Ask Maria after the session. I don't have time to go into that right now. So what you can do to have some fun, you're smarter than the optimizer. Statistics are overrated. You want to try something else here. Hash join, nested loops, screw that. So this is a hint that's actually the optimizer's providing. And I want to try this instead. So I'm going to pin this auto trace and run the auto trace again. And now I'm going to right click and say, let's compare those two auto traces and see if anything's actually better or not. And you can see almost at the very first step, it's completely different. And look how the stats changed as well. Maybe I'm not smarter than the optimizer. Or maybe I am. I don't know. But I think this is nice. Even if you're not using the hints trick, which I would say use with caution, especially if you're tuning in production, which you should never do. You can at least change the queries in a sensible manner and pin these plans and do the compares and see quite clearly side by side what's going on. And of course, if you're doing real tuning work and you want to set this up as a scenario, run this 10, 20, 30 times, get results that are somewhat in the same statistical, what's the word I'm looking for? You know. Use your brains. Just don't see it works once faster and check that into production. You're going to get in trouble. Now, what we show for you in these plans and auto traces is configured in the preferences. There's an auto trace and explain plan page. 4.2, we finally got around to just adding every single plan table column to both sides. So there's literally nothing you shouldn't be able to see here if you want. If you're wondering where things like plan notes would be available, you just want to enable the other XML. I think it must be the other XML branch column. That's where the optimizer team said, screw adding more columns. We'll just add XMLs we needed after the fact, I'm guessing is what Maria's nodding her head, yeah. It sounded much more scientific when they sat down and had that meeting, I'm sure. But when you scroll down to the bottom of a plan area, you'll see that information here. And there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Dynamic sampling, yes. Plan hash, adaptive plan, yes. Here are those hints that we pulled out. Lots of hints. Any questions about auto trace? Yes.
So sometimes I will be in somebody else's code and I need to show them the plan and tell them this is what's wrong and fix it. Doing a Windows snippet or something like that's not exactly useful.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. Not like what you, well, I always say no too quickly. You can export it to HTML. Yeah, and it does okay. Probably what I would do is get the plan using dbms xplan, write it in a SQL block, make sure you use a fixed width text, use spool, put it out that way. Yeah. Or maybe run real-time SQL monitoring and get them the report out of that. Yeah. Who in here has the tuning pack? You all think you have it. Make sure you have it. So this is something that's been in the tool for a long time, but something we enhanced significantly for 4.2. See, we are saying, hey, are you really sure you have this? And so you're saying yes here. This is not like the iTunes end user license agreement. You want to. So these are the reports available, and if I click on one, I can get the information for them below. So I've got degree, parallel 2. Here's the information from those bits. Mouse over, you can get the weight breakdowns. It's not really got information there to show because it wasn't really running very long. This is actually not super useful. But here's the plan itself. And I'm sorry, the plan statistics. There's quite a lot to fit on the screen here. But it should let you know if your degree of parallelization got knocked down because the server was starved. It should tell you what the major weight events are. And if this is actually running in real time, this screen refreshes live and you can actually see the optimizer progress as it runs from one step to the next. Yeah. The little save button. That's really weird that keeps jumping up and down. Troy, I think that's your fault. That's okay. No, it's fine. We're in earthquake country. I don't know. It's okay. Troy gets a pass today. So I got distracted. What was I going to say? Oh, this is my personal opinion. I think the cost of the tuning pack is 100% realized with this feature. Not SQL Dev, but in general, real-time SQL monitoring. Although we sure as heck make it look a lot nicer and easier to get to. Hey, negotiating, it's great. And another thing I really like about our cloud services is a lot of the cloud services we have kind of, you lose this idea of additions and options. So, you know, you've got a database running on Exadata, you've just got stuff. Now, different cloud subscriptions do have certain limitations, so it's not like that for everything. But oh, I really want to show you the cache plan. If you use the plan button for a query, oh, there's my little squiggles. I just woke up and decided, screw it, let's work. So if you're on 12C and higher, the first squiggle uses SQL text expansion feature, which Tom Kite was a big fan of, and me too. If you don't know who Tom Kite is, he's the reason there's an Ask Tom, and why we've got a whole team of people employed now just to answer questions. We can blame Tom for that. So mouse under this, we ask the database, hey, what's the real query behind this? Which can be very, very useful when debugging very simple select star from reports in your BI tools. And then let's show off the formatter. Work, 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 please. Yep. So this is what that query actually is. What does that query do? Well, let's open up the code outline and see what's in there. It's a SQL statement. That's not super useful. We'll show that later. Oh, there it is. It just takes a while to parse that monster. And it is a monster. So the other thing you can do is, I'm going to quit working again. You can hover. Oh, we lost my connection somehow. How did that happen? No. You can, I'm jumping between editors. If you see the little squiggle here, again, it'll just give you that column list. 20 minutes left. Database GUI. So this is where we go when we're tired of typing. This is why DBAs hate GUIs, because they don't learn stuff, they just kind of click around. But when it's there, when you want it, I think it sure can save you a lot of time. So you can see I'm taking advantage of that split editor here. So I've got my column list, my data, and then my relational diagram to the right. Who in here knows about the relational diagram support built into the tool? Some of you aren't raising your hand, so I'm going to show that right now. Sometimes it has a very sad story to tell. So I tried to put it in a very prominent place. I said, let's put it right beside the data. It actually says data model, if you think about it. Come on, click. So I haven't used the diagrammer yet today, so it's got to load that, and then it should pop out. We're going to look at the foreign keys in your data dictionary, and we're going to look to see what's pointing at it and what's it pointing to, one level each. And that's what employees looks like. You can even see employees points to itself. That's the old manager ID. Departments, there's a relation there. Now, if I want to actually turn this into a design, I click that button. And I have a fully functional model now where I can do things like generate DDL previews. I'm not connected to a database at this point, but I can come in and add columns. I can compare with the data dictionary in the database. I can version this. I can do all kinds of cool things. It replaces the cocktail-styled napkin of database design, hopefully. The sad story is when this comes up and there's nothing pointing at it, because the relationships are hard-coded in the app. So it makes it easier for us to escape our database vendor. So that's the story, I guess. You're never escaping us. Sorry. GUI tricks. I showed this on Sunday. I'll show it again. You can open a schema browser. Instead of using the tree, you can have a drop-down style. You've got the ability to turn stuff off in the tree. I really think every single one of you should probably take a look at this. If you're not using this stuff in the database, you can turn it off so it's not showing in your navigator. So in mine, I've got it set just to show a subset of that, although that's still pretty big. And then, of course, you've got object-level filters, which I'm assuming you know about. And also schema-level filters. So I can say, only show me filters that are, in this 5, or I can say, only show me schemas that have more than 0 objects. This is an expensive query to run. It's quite useful in dev and test, though, because we're basically going and asking how many objects are in each of these schemas, and then we're only showing those. So you have application logins. They theoretically wouldn't show here. No. Object type suppressed? No. But suppressing object lists, yeah, it'll say, look, this is filtered. So the only one that's filtered by default is tables, and we're saying don't show us things that are in the recycle bin. That place you go when you screw up and you think you've lost your job. Usually the recycle bin can help you out. I don't know what happened before 10G. I guess that's when monster.com took off. Yeah, job hopping. The recycle bin does have some limitations. It can only hold so much, and it's only in there for so long. So don't get your coffee and lunch. You go straight to the recycle bin and get that stuff back out before someone realizes. So there is a talk here on the data modeler. I think Kent's already done it. Look for Kent's slides on the Kscope 17 website or mobile app. And Heli from Finland, Heli Helshako, I can't say that right, has an awesome book from Oracle Press on the data modeler, tech reviewed by Kent and me. I fixed the screenshots. Kent helped out with the actual design modeling stuff. Oh, is there a session right after this? That Heli's doing? That's pretty good. You probably should do that. Check that. Yeah, she's one of the best presenters. And Heli, you just accepted to speak at Oracle Open World. 2 talks at Open World. Yes, one of our ACE directors. Literally wrote the book, teaches the class, all that good stuff. Kent and Heli both have awesome websites. Go check their blogs if you have actual design questions. My blog concentrates more on the tips and tricks and GUI stuff. So reporting, I'm not going to talk about it other than just to show you what's possible with it. And if you want more of a deeper dive on this, come to my talk tomorrow. But really, anytime you've got an ad hoc query that kind of turns into a query you run every time Bob from accounting calls you, this is an opportunity to save yourself time and prevent mistakes. Codify it somehow. And one of the options to do that is a SQL Developer report. And behind every report is just one or more queries. You can code in bind variables for prompting. They can be parent-child driven, so you can select, I can click on this on the top and have this refresh on the bottom. Full grid supports, I can export all of that to HTML or to Excel spreadsheets or PDFs. I can have HTML actually generated in the report itself, which I've done to expose Ash reports before, for example. I've got object navigators over there, so I've got a data type report that I like to use when someone asks me how to use blobs. I can get direct links to any table that has a blob as the data type and save myself time that way. Reports are really easy to share. You can just right-click, save as, and right-click open, and be rocking and rolling so you can empower your coworkers. Or don't share this with your coworkers and have that edge on them when it's time for the raise and promotion. Do they still do those? Raises, promotions? They should. The unemployment rate's like 3.5%. Yeah. Oh well. Did we have DBAs in the room? Are there any DBAs in the room? Do you want stuff just for you? Well, see, what I like about this is you all can see what the DBAs can do for you, and they have no excuses not to just drop everything and bang, bang, bang. Yeah. And if you bother the DBAs enough in the right way, they'll grant you privs and just let you do it yourself. And if they don't, then go work somewhere else. And I'm not joking on that, by the way. You're too valuable to be stuck working someplace where they don't value you. So view DBA, this is where you go to double that feature set. As a developer, have you ever needed to clone a user to grab all the same privs and everything? Have you ever done that? DBAs, have you ever needed to just create... So this is kind of a trick in here. If you go to the security panel in users, right-click on HR, say create like, enable copy object privs. My favorite password of all time. We better put a 1 on the end of it. 1. SQL. So this is going to have all the roles, all the privs, and all the object grants on it. That can save you some time. So of course we have all the create alter dialogues for all of these objects as well. Another thing that some developers might have some interest in are the Ash AWR reports, if you have access to that. If you don't have access to that, ask why they blame you for all the performance problems if they won't share with you the performance data. And data pump. So if you have access, if they created for you a directory on the server to get data in and out of in a dev box, there's a wizard here for running your data pump jobs that works quite nice. We surprised the data pump team. They didn't even know we built this for them. And they're like, oh, it actually works. We're like, oh, thanks. Yeah, that was a pretty good job. Well, you've got to get data pump support for Exadata Express first. And I don't think Exadata Express gives you access to the OS. Yeah. Well, request number 1 is to get data pump support in Exadata Express. When you get to the point where you need data volumes that require things like data pump, then you upgrade Exadata Express to DBAS. That's my answer. Pull out your credit card and buy a fancier cloud subscription. I know that's a very flippant answer, but it's a business decision at this point, not a technical one. Let's see what else in here. This is our instance viewer. It's got a top SQL report. So I'm just creating a very expensive query. Don't ever, ever, ever run this. I did Cartesian joins before and crashed demo boxes at Open World. That was fun. But I can see this query pop up, and then I can drill into a SQL report that will give me the actual plan. I can see its bind variables. I can do a SQL tuning advisor job, and I can also see the query execution time via active session history. Active session history. 8 minutes left. So just very briefly, this technology REST enables the database. It connects the database with the internet. And if that scares you, I probably should a little bit, you want to run this with all the security stuff turned on. And whenever I demo it, I turn all the security stuff off. So don't do what I do. But if you have an application that doesn't have SQLnet or JDBC driver access, but you can get to it via HTTP or never HTTP, HTTPS, we've got a technology that makes things in the database available via that protocol. And what you might like about SQL Developer, if you want to get your hands dirty on this, you can actually install and run ORDs directly out of SQL Developer itself on your local VirtualBox image running on just your laptop, so you're not going to expose anything, get in trouble, so to speak. And when you're ready to start coding RESTful services, it's built into the connection tree. So 4.2 and newer, there's something called REST Data Services. So you can see your modules and your handlers. So I'm going to add a post that'll accept a JSON in a post body and parse that and build, I don't know, an insert statement and something else, and then return the new values back as JSON. And I can code this stuff, hit the save button, it's live in ORD, then I can come over to Postman or curl and run that command, and bada bing, bada bong, there's my stuff. And if I don't like that, I come back here, change it again, hit save, hit refresh, and we're good to go. And when you're ready to put this in production, you right-click again, and it generates a SQL Plus style script that has the PL SQL API calls to go put this on your production box. All right, SQLcl. I'm not going to go too much into this because there's a lot of SQLcl talks this week, and I don't want to steal any of their thunder. Who in here loves SQL Plus? If you love SQL Plus, there's a chance you're going to really, be tempted to cheat on her. I'm going to feel bad, but this is not an alternative, but it's a Java basically implementation of SQL Plus made by the SQL Developer team. So it should feel very familiar to you. It's just my favorite tech scene of all time. So SQL Plus started really back in the day. From the very start is the UFI, or the user-friendly interface. And we popped up many, many years later with SQLcl. It's been in production for an entire year now. I probably should skip that slide. All right, so here's what we got. It's only 15 megabyte download. Thanks, Helen, I got 5 minutes. So I'm going to end here, show one SQLcl trick, and then try to leave time for questions. You don't need an Oracle client to get started. It's got the driver and everything you need to connect out of the box. Clean, automatic formatting. No more of that SQL Plus stuff going all over the place. I mean, day one, you're teaching your kids Oracle, and you show them that, and they're like, screw you, give me my Pokemon game, you know. So we just fix that problem. A built-in editor. As you're typing, you want to change something, you can use the arrow keys to mouse or you know, to go around in the buffer inside the command line and change your code. The pop-up helps are there. SQL history built in, on, out of the box, saves it between sessions. New commands that might make sense, like CTAS, DDL, SSH tunnel. I'll let you guess what those commands do, but they're built in. You don't have to code that stuff anymore. Here's a little animated GIF that gives me a chance to catch my breath. You guys watch that. Questions? That's asking for the help. It's doing autocomplete. I'm just hitting the tab key when I want help. There's the column list. I start typing. It autocompletes when there's only one match, or narrows the list. Here I'm going up and changing stuff. By the way, if you really like that secondary offline editor, you can still use that. So all the SQL Plus functionality is still here. Just the new stuff is here too. And at some point I'm going to run this. Here's that automatically formatted code. I'm going to change that from the regular formatting to CSV without changing the code itself, changing the page size to 200, running it. There's the CSV data. So if that's not enough to at least get you interested into the next call, I can help you. Or the next demo. And we are building a web version of SQL Developer for our cloud subscription database users. Everything you like about the SQL worksheet and the data modeler is going to be in the web. So again, your kid, brand new, doesn't know anything. Do you even Oracle? No, I don't, but I know how to use a web browser. Right-click, start subscription. Right-click, create database. Right-click, open SQL worksheet, start writing queries, browse the database, get the results back in a grid, save that to Excel, because we can build new solutions, but all the same work habits will still be out there. We hope to put this out this summer. Yeah. Yeah, there is. It's not talks. It's going to happen. So eventually this will replace that worksheet that's in Apex. It'll still have their look and feel, but it'll be all of our all of our pieces under it that power it. And it's 100% command support, so you won't have those limitations for running stuff like you do in Apex sometimes. Yeah. No, you cannot do a rollback because we're doing things over HTTP. Every transaction, it's stateless. Now you can run multiple things in a transaction. You got to put them all together. But if you're saying insert into and run that, it's committed. But if you write a block and you use transactional code and run that all as once, then you can control it that way. If that scares you, you still have got the fat GUI when you have JDBC drivers. Yep. You can always access flashback. You can say as of this time ago reset. Yeah, question. No, 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 no. Another lost argument with the developers, so blame me. I mean, you can drag. I am so not the boss. Maria, explain to the crowd how product managers don't actually manage anything. And that is why she is the best. We didn't even rehearse that one. That's it. I'm over. We're officially done. So I'll be around until Thursday morning. Look for me. Feel free to high-five me or smack me or ask me questions. I'll try to be at the OTN lounge. I'll try to be at the vendor hall. I'll be at the party tomorrow night. Thanks, everyone.